If you're in the market for a travel tripod, then this just might be the video for you. Because in this video, we're going to compare two popular travel tripod models from both K&F Concept and Manfrotto, discuss their many similarities and unique differences, and ultimately make the call as to which might be the best model of the bunch. Now for full disclosure, both K&F Concept and Manfrotto provided me these tripods to review. No money exchanged hands in either of these cases. Neither of these companies get to provide any input into this video, nor do they get to see it before I post it, but I do get to keep both of these tripods as an FYI. So first and foremost, we should clarify what specific travel tripod models we are actually talking about here. Now on the K&F Concept side, we are talking about the K255A4 model, as you can see right beside me here. And on the Manfrotto side, as you can see right beside me here, we are talking about, well, I'm gonna have to read you the model name because I can't remember it otherwise. The MKBFRLA4BK-BH US. There you go. So as I mentioned before, let's talk about the similarities of these tripods. Each of these are both aluminum travel tripod models, which, compared to say a carbon fiber option, means they will run a little bit cheaper, though might weigh a bit more compared to some other offerings. That said, they each both reach a fairly similar maximum height, with the K&F Concept going up to a maximum of 68 inches, and the Manfrotto reaching a maximum height of roughly 60 inches. Now in their closed and most compact form, as you can see beside me here, they roughly each come in at around 16 inches when folded, so again, they both maintain a very similar form factor and size overall. Now given the similar size and construction of these tripods, they also each come in at around a similar weight, with the K&F Concept weighing in at around 3.3 pounds and the Manfrotto weighing in at around 3.51 pounds. One of the legs on each of these tripods contains a grip, allowing you to have a bit more easier handling when moving the tripod around. Each of these tripods contain their own unique ball head design with their own proprietary mount for a camera, as well as allowing for the ability to orient the camera not just in its landscape mode, but also vertically on its side to be able to take photos in portrait mode. And to position and control that ball head, each of these tripods contain a flexible and adjustable center post design that allows you to raise or lower the ball head. Now coming back to the legs of the tripod, each of these tripods do have the ability to position the legs in different configurations, technically in 3 different orientations, from its tallest and sort of highest height to a medium spread to a very near flat design in this case, with the Manfrotto allowing you to go almost completely flush to the ground versus slightly raised with the K&F Concept. Also, even on the accessory front, both tripods come with a similar assortment of goodies. This includes, of course, manuals, and each of them include their own soft bag that easily holds the tripod and enables it to be moved around easily for transport. Yet now that we've touched on many of the similarities, we should also talk about the differences of these tripods, and to do that, we will explore each model individually. Now on the K&F Concept, one of the largest differences between this model and the Manfrotto is the fact that the K&F Concept utilizes twist locks for securing the legs, and a 5-section design here in this case. Now K&F Concept does provide other models that contain flip locks, of course, but when it comes to this particular travel tripod model, we are using twist locks. Of course, as mentioned before, the K&F Concept contains its own proprietary camera mount, as you can see right here. This easily screws into the 1/4-20 thread of your camera in various different configurations, and we'll talk about the differences between these different mount options between the tripods in a bit. Now one of the other key differences with the K&F Concept, as you can see with this leg in particular, is the fact that the K&F Concept, or at least one of the legs of the tripod, can be converted into a standalone monopod. So yes, you can unscrew this particular leg from the tripod assembly, detach the ball head, and attach it on this individual leg, and then you will have a essentially temporary monopod that you can use for different purposes. Definitely a unique convenience for something like this, and though I wouldn't say it's the best monopod you're going to find out there, it's probably better than not having the option at all. Now perhaps the last unique element that comes with the K&F Concept, as you can see by me sort of accentuating the ball head here, is the fact that this ball head is meant to accommodate up to 22 pounds of payload, which we're going to touch back on in a bit here, but that is actually a very high payload considering the size and the overall build and construction of this tripod. Alright now, and so for the differences on the Manfrotto side, while we mentioned the K&F Concept had twist locks, the Manfrotto in this case utilizes flip locks and a 4-section tripod design. Now similar to the K&F Concept, of course you can get the Manfrotto in a twist lock design as well. In this case, I do prefer the flip lock design here, and though they are a less common find when it comes to travel tripods, I do think they tend to hold up a bit better, and of course have less of a chance of you potentially catching your finger or something else when twisting it accidentally. Also, because these flip locks are very similar to what you would find on other Manfrotto tripods and monopods, as you can see here, indicated by the various screws, you are able to tighten or loosen the tension on these and adjust them with an included Allen wrench tool. Now, as I mentioned with the K&F Concept, of course the Manfrotto also has its own ball head with its own proprietary mounting system and mounting plate, as you can see here, also screwing easily into a camera's 1/4-20 thread. In this case, I think the mounting plate works fine. However, I will say that it is different, and Manfrotto does have many different mounting plate options, and in fact, I actually tend to prefer the 200 PL plate that I've talked about in other reviews, like for the Manfrotto 290 Extra and 128 RC tripod, that I will leave a link to above and in the description below if you want to learn a little more about that. So yes, this plate might be compatible or not, depending on what other Manfrotto gear you already own, so those things might not be as easily transferable or portable across our different models as you may have hoped. Now, perhaps the last largest difference to touch on between the Manfrotto and the K&F Concept is the fact that the Manfrotto is weighted at being able to accommodate a max payload of 8.8 pounds. So yes, a marked difference and roughly a third of what the K&F Concept offers. That said, I have a further take on these different weight limits and capacities, and they may not be as transparent or obvious as they are on paper, so we'll talk about that in a bit. So again, each of these models contain many similarities and a few key differences. So now let's talk about my personal experience and take in using these, which gets a little bit interesting compared to what you might find on paper. So I've had a number of opportunities to use both of these travel tripods over the past month or so, taking them on a handful of gigs, but also just shooting with them in and around the house. Overall, both of these tripods are very well constructed and solid and stable. I will say I would give a slight edge to the Manfrotto in terms of its overall build quality and design. Perhaps maybe there's a small part or two on the K&F Concept side that looks like it was done with a cheaper material or plastic compared to what was done with Manfrotto. Each of these tripod models are incredibly flexible and adaptable and overall just do the job. So in this case, I had really a couple of key tests I wanted to make sure that these travel tripods could handle, both for my own personal use and in general for reviewing them. So I shoot with Sony Alpha mirrorless cameras and their full frame A7 series bodies. That plus say a larger regular lens, something like a 24-70 zoom or a 50mm prime. Yes, I can certainly tell you that both of these tripods accommodate that basic setup very easily, and certainly do so without any qualms or questions as to their ability to hold that. And ultimately, this is probably my most common, and maybe a lot of folks' most common use case for a travel tripod. That said, I did want to push this a little more to its limits, and so I did want to test a larger and heavier setup on each of these to see how it would fare. In my case, again, shooting on Sony Alpha mirrorless bodies and having some other accessories I could put on them, my heavier payload test ended up being a Sony A7S III, along with a 70-200 f2.8 G Master version 2 lens, along with the camera in a cage, shotgun mic, a separate monitor and battery attached to it, overall making for a much heavier payload compared to just that basic body and traditional lens setup. Now the fun fact here in this setup is that it is actually starting to push or get towards the limit of the Manfrotto's overall weight capacity. However, on the K&F Concept side is ultimately well below what it should be able to support. Now technically, in this case, both of these tripods supported this payload and be able to do so fairly securely. I say fairly securely in that I was testing this heavier setup in my house, not on the job actually with a wind or any stronger current going on or any inclement weather overall. And I would say in both of these cases, it seemed as though it was sort of on the edge or teetering towards that top end of the weight limit. So even though Manfrotto's might be rated at around 8.8 pounds, it might be able to go ever so slightly over that and still accommodate it. And so while K&F Concepts might be at a maximum payload of around 22 pounds, I don't think I'd want to get anywhere near that in trying to test those limits. Overall, both ball heads were very smooth and provided a really great response in being able to adjust and move the camera around on it in different positions. I actually really like the 494 mount that the Manfrotto tripod uses, which is very similar in both design and construction to the 492 mount that works with different camera shoe mounts. And in fact, it is this 492 mount that I've already done sort of a review and covering briefly in my overall Sony A7R5 rig build video, which I will leave a link to above and in the description below that you can check out. Each of these tripods' proprietary mounts for the heads I do think worked well enough to accommodate the different setups and payloads that they're supposed to. I'm not sure if I had a particular preference of one versus the other. I thought the Manfrotto's design was a bit more versatile, but it also had a bit more of a tendency to get stuck on the bottom of my camera and require something like a coin or a separate utility tool to be able to pry it and unscrew it, compared to the K&F Concept, which was a bit more easier both to put on and take off. That said, I really did like the flip lock operation of the tripod head that the Manfrotto model had versus the sort of screw lock option that the K&F Concept uses. And maybe to tie back to a separate lock discussion for the legs, yes, I found both of these to be very solid and secure. It was relatively trivial to be able to extend and contract the tripod in various different positions using the legs and their respective lock designs. Yes, I still do find flip locks slightly quicker, but I do think K&F Concept's twist lock design was very well implemented. And that is something I can say for every company's twist lock design. But to talk about all their similarities, we should also talk about one key difference between these models, which is, of course, price. So this K&F Concept travel tripod model retails for around $85 US, and this Manfrotto travel tripod tripod model retails for around $190 US. So yes, there's nearly a more than twofold difference on price between these two models, and that price point difference is a really interesting distinction that might have a factor in which model you choose. So overall, what is my take on the K&F Concept and Manfrotto travel tripod models that we looked at here? Truthfully, I think these are actually both great, very well-matched travel tripods that slightly serve different yet very similar purposes. If you're looking for a model that gives you perhaps the best bang for your buck, and yes, it is actually hard to find a really good travel tripod less than $100, I still believe that to be the case, I would say the K&F Concept is a great option and something you should certainly consider. That said, if you're looking for a model that might slightly better stand the test of time and will be a more rugged companion with you in different shooting situations on the go, I do think the Manfrotto, certainly if price is no object, might be the better route to go there. Overall, I'm actually thrilled that I have both of these now, and will probably be using both in different situations if and when I need a travel tripod to come with me. Now, if I had to pick one between the two or the other, I might still give a slight edge to the Manfrotto in just a couple of key areas, but that said, that model is still double the price point of the K&F Concept. And so, sure, if money is no object, that might be the case, but if money and cost is your primary concern, then perhaps it is actually the K&F Concept that gets the nod. All in all, I don't think you can go wrong with either of these, and that might be a rarity to say in a comparison video, but I'm truly glad that I have both of these to use going forward. So that is my take on at least this particular travel tripod comparison between K&F Concept and Manfrotto. Hopefully this video has been of some help to you. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe if it has. I have a number of different videos around tripods on the channel already that I would definitely encourage you to check out, and there will certainly be many more videos around tripods, monopods, and other types of stabilizers that are on the way. For now, that is all I have to say, so thanks for watching.